Parvez, I think we have been put into the limelight here, in the hotspot over here, on talking about AI, and it's the buzzword these days. And you would also be seeing it coming across to you, whether in any of your interactions, whether with any of the peers or the research agencies who come and talk to you on AI. And it's a word which is today being used very, very loosely without most of the people really understanding the impact. And that's where I think it is important that we try to have some clarity on, because what happens, I have seen that when the CEO and CIO typically interact on it, the CIO typically tries to use all the jargons and technical jargons, which makes it even difficult for a normal business person to understand. And CEO has his own expectations of improving productivity, improving revenues, how do we improve the customer experience. And that's where there is at times a gap. So let's start with the audience also trying to understand, what does a typical CEO expect when he talks about AI?
You touched on the raw point, and it's a very important point, that the conversations between a CEO and CIO typically land up where one is focused on the business metrics and the other is trying to get the latest technology implemented for improving the business metrics. And most of the time, CEOs, even if some of the CEOs understand technology or pretend to understand technology, 50 to 60% of the time are usually laymen in the technology world. That's how I believe, because people understand use cases far, far better. So I think one of the biggest advantages which I have found useful when engaging with the CDO or CTO is to talk about the use case. And when you talk about the use case, and when the CEO says, say for example, if I am talking about a collection use case, and 5 years ago when a video-based robo used to talk, or video-based interaction used to happen, or a audio-based interaction used to happen with a customer, that audio-based interaction was a little bit broken interaction. It used to sound robotic. And today, if the CTO tells me that the technology is advanced so much, if Amitabh Bachchan's voice is coming and if he switches to Telugu, the lip sync is going to be switching over to Telugu. Now that is a technology development which is requiring huge amount of back-end work, but this the CEO understands.
The CEO is still talking about predictive AI, whereas the world has moved to conversation AI, agentic AI, Gen AI, chat GPTs. And the workforce that is coming in today is a much more technology savvy than what you and I are.
Yes.
And that's a real challenge which we all have to really understand. And that's where I think you've made the right point, is that pick up the business use cases. And IT guys have to use that to talk and solve a business problem. I believe the challenge that you face, the CEOs face, and with 30 years of my experience, I've realized the same thing, that when I was speaking something, the CEO was actually thinking something different. And today the exposure to all the senior management people in terms of technology is a lot more, in terms of articles that keep on coming in terms of things that are happening. And with all the fintechs also coming in and talking. So one expectation that I take from you is the CIO should be talking more of a business language. The other challenge that CIOs have, I wanted to bring that perspective also to you, is when the CIOs are talking about technology, there's a lot of cost that comes into it. And that's where typically a CFO comes and says, no, not the cost. What is your advice to people on how to handle that? And maybe we can have a discussion on your experience and my experience on that.
See, in any organization, the CFO is going to talk cost. So it is not only the CTO or the CDO has to face it. Even when business is trying to organize an offsite, the CFO is going to talk cost. If the operations team is going to say that this is the enterprise related transformation I want to do, the CFO is going to talk cost. So cost is an essential element which is going to come in. what tends to happen is, I think the conversation degenerates into cost. I think where the CEO as well as the CTO need to shift the focus is, cost is given. Yes, we are going to require 5 crore rupees to be invested to do this particular thing. But the conversation needs to shift to what is the revenue or what is the upside that is going to come in. And that is where the conversation sort of, because what the CEO does is he calls the CTO in the room, the CFO in the room, and the chief business officer is in the room. The chief business officer says, no, productivity will increase, but it will increase because I am going to push it. It's not only because of this new thing that is going to come. So the direct attribution of that revenue doesn't happen to the enablement that you are doing from technology side. One, because the CBO doesn't want to give full credit to the technology. Second thing, what tends to happen is the sales side or business side typically takes time to get into that new technology. Any new technology, there is a transition time which comes in. And that is where, again, some of these challenges come in. For example, voice technology. With mobile, what happened was the technology, when we had to learn how to use the mobile, today we are completely trained, but some of you might have used non-smartphones, which was you had to press 3 times to get A and B text messages and all that. And smartphones came in, you had to learn how to use apps. So the transformation was happening in the individual who was trying to learn. But with Alexa, when happened, the technology had to learn how human beings speak. Now that is a big transformation. When that happens, usage suddenly goes up. And when that happens, the conversation between the CTO and the CIO moves away from cost and says, okay, fine, the transition time to move to the technology is coming much, much better. So I think that's the conundrum you can add. But once you add, Tarun, I have a question for you the other way around also. Okay. Now just understand from the CEO's perspective, you guys have told him that now cybersecurity, there are so many changes happening. Cloud, there are so many changes happening. 3 years ago, you told him switch to cloud. Now you're telling him hybrid is better. Then you're telling him data center is better. That is more or less cost. So the CEO is a scared animal right now. Okay, cybersecurity is scared. Cloud is scared. He is scared with the latest technology. You're talking about Gen AI, where he's not moved away from predictive AI. He already has COBOL-based systems working with him. You're saying support is not available. So the multiple things that are getting thrown at the CEO are also many. Yes. And he doesn't want to tell you that he doesn't understand some of these things. Now, how do you solve that problem also? How does a CTO help the CEO also get up the curve?
Basic things that a CIO I would expect to do is, one, walk the talk of educating people. If you are scared, if you're not learning new things, you cannot bring in value to the business. And that's where multiple sets of workshops and the example that you talked about of picking up the use cases, how will a new technology or an older technology or a change in the process help the business? It's no more to IT people take everything as an IT project. And that's a shift people have to make. IT does not own any project. Everything that IT does is doing for the business. And if business has to understand the value, they first need to understand what is a technology and how it is going to benefit. Nobody is going to be an expert. And yes, I understand the CEO is not only looking at IT, he has to be responsible for the revenue, for the customers, the board, the regulators. All those things are a massive pressure on the CEO. So the least that an IT guy could do is first work with his peers across, educate them on the technology and the benefits that can come in, and then jointly come and talk to the CEO. This is what is the benefit that we are trying to bring in. This is my CBA, and we will be positive in this much time. And this is the benefit that will come in. It can be in terms of productivity increase. It can be in terms of revenue increase. It can be in terms of customer experience, the NPA going up. So IT has to start thinking business. And that's where is the current challenge.
One more challenge which CEOs face is this this designation called CTO, CDO, and CIO. And many organizations now have one person as CTO, CDO, and CIO, which is good. But if you have three people, now just imagine the business guy goes to the CTO. The CTO says, no, this is not an enterprise problem. Go to the CDO. The CDO says, yeah, you've come for a digital problem, but the CIO will need to come in because this requires data. And then all three tell him, you write a BRE and then give it to us. Then we'll evaluate BRE का कौन सा part इधर जाएगा, कौन सा part उधर. The guy has lost it. उसको नहीं समझ में आ रहा क्या हो रहा है. Now, and with AI, it is getting more complicated because AI data है. अब data आएगा तो CIO आएगा, और data है तो CDO भी आएगा because front end का UI UX उसके साथ वो आएगा, और फिर enterprise को touch करोगे तो CTO भी आएगा. एंड मेरा डेटा क्लीन नहीं है, जो कि मोस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में डेटा तो क्लीन नहीं होता, तो फिर वेंडर आएगा जो कि बेसिक प्रिमिटिव 15 साल पहले का विच इज़ क्या वेंडर मैनेजमेंट यूनिट फिर डेटा क्लीन करेगा. नाउ दैट इज़ वेयर इट फॉल्स इन द क्रैक्स. हाउ डू वी सॉल्व दिस? And now also HR says ये 3 designation चाहिए, नहीं तो retention of talent is a big problem. एक ही बंदा लाएंगे तो फिर that is a bigger challenge in organizations.
So the first focus, whether it is a CDO or a CTO or a data officer, is how do we ensure that the data that we are capturing is coming in the right manner, the data is cleaned regularly, how is the data ingested, how is the data governed? Because with data today, the biggest problem that is who has access to what data. And with everything becoming digital, that's going to become a nightmare. And that's where the 5th problem comes in, which is the infosec or the cybersecurity guy. Most of the organizations, these people work in isolations. Somebody brings in the architecture, then somebody will come in, no, my data is to be cleaned. And in the end, the CISO comes in and says, no, these are the gaps that in it. So the process has to be overhauled. It has to be brought in and everybody has to sit down. I believe it should be a workshop-based assessment that has to be done, or an SBU that you create for a project, or a pod that you create where you have the right set of people right from the beginning.
There is no incentive for the CIO to really make an effort to understand business, because I am measured on my project output, uptime, SLAs. Is there any possibility that we have cross-functional KRAs where the CIO or CTO is also measured in terms of, let's say, some business results? Likewise, the sales side is also measured in terms of adoption of technology or so on and so forth. Okay.
You are absolutely right. But see, what has happened is the world has become so dynamic and so fluid that today getting a CIO or a CTO and a CBO to work only based on KRAs is also not going to yield results, because the business itself and technology itself has become so dynamic that within 3 months and 6 months, the KRA which you decided in February doesn't sound right. So I think what needs to happen is the CTO and the CBO both need to have a ownership at the CEO's table, where that ownership has to come in non-KRA based. It has to come in that this is my company, I am running it, I'm not an employee. Both the individuals have to feel like that. And the CEO needs to make a culture where the CTO and the CBO, the business head and the CTO, feel this is my company. And for my company, I am performing a role called CBO. Tomorrow, I might be the CRO also. So when that thinking comes in, then you are not restricted to what is written in the KRA. Then you are saying, it's like, this is my house. So when I walk in the house, if there is some kachra lying somewhere, I pick it up. I don't say that is the maid's job to do. I don't say that I have assigned it to my younger son to pick it up, so he will come and pick it up. Similarly, see, because what happens, these functions are so overlapping that if one doesn't cover for the other, even a simple discussion like BRE can take a whole year. BRE तुम लिखोगे या मैं लिखूंगा, उसमें का ये वाला part तुम लिखोगे या ये वाला part मैं लिखूंगा. This discussion can go on for life. So I am not in favor of KRA solving the problem. I personally believe if two individuals who are performing the role of CTO and CRO believe that this is my company, and the CEO makes them believe by action as well as by intention as well as by culture, then they will behave, the CTO will also behave like a business head and tell him, tu ye business mein ye galat kar raha hai, I can solve it like this. He will say, okay, fine, to solve kar, I give you full control.
While we were discussing on this, when a CIO presents something to a CEO, basically, or a CEO or tech team, we consider it that way, we usually come up with a lot of jargon saying it's going to be transformational, or when we commit saying that it's going to increase the revenue by 20% or cost by 10%, instead of looking at that ways, can we look at granular things? Like, say, for example, when we are implementing a technology and we are implementing AI, can we come up with saying particular results, like this would bring out these many potential leads which would convert? So that way, what will happen is it will help the business teams also to understand the particular outcome of that particular technology, and that will in turn translate into results. But for the business people and CEOs, it will become more easier to understand the outcomes of each implementation and further move into the benefits. So what is your view on that?
I think absolutely right. Absolutely right. The point is, this will only happen when you work with your peers and your partners in the business, because you might say that it will reduce this much or it improve the productivity, but there has to be buy-in from your counterpart to agree to that, and then you work together. So, as I said, it's no more an IT project. Nothing is IT. IT is part of the business now. And when you go with that approach, the problem that Parvez talked about with all the jargons that we keep on using in and bringing them up the curve, our peers, that gets resolved very easily with the approach that you're talking about. And that's absolutely what every IT person needs to do.
You think organizations are overwhelmingly optimistic but underprepared for implementation of AI projects, but underprepared?
True. Yes, it is, because this is a technology which is so changing so fast, and we are all drawn by the words that we keep on hearing and the benefits, that use cases that we talk about. But just to be very frank, implementing an AI requires a lot many changes to be done at the back end, starting right with your data, the quality, the architecture, the GPUs that you need to buy, change your whole infrastructure. So as of today, yes, we are underprepared, but that does not mean that we will not adapt it. We will start picking up use cases, which the low-hanging ones first, which start giving a result faster. And that's where the confidence building happens. And then you start investing and changing your processes at the back end.
Absolutely. See, what tends to happen is, ma'am, when the CEOs are told by the boards that, look here, this company is doing this, that company is doing this, then the CEO comes under pressure. Yeah, somebody is doing this, they put this in the investor presentation, this AI is happening there, that AI is happening. So he comes to the CTO, yeah, let's make something, put to the board, I want it in 1 month. Now I have to show to the board. That's where the conversation between the CTO and the CEO has to be, just because those guys did it, we are not going to do it because that's not beneficial for us. This is what we will do. We've already worked on this, and this is what will happen in 1 month. That conversation doesn't happen. The conversation happens that the CEO says, I don't want to hear anything else. You do whatever they've done. I want to show to the board. Already somebody has done it. You do it. It's of no use.
Correct.
You're a copycat now. You have to do something original, which is your DNA. What is going to benefit you? As a CTO, you have to have the conviction to tell the CEO that don't copy them. When you copy, you're going to be laggard. There is going to be pressure. That is where it happens, ma'am. That then you are not prepared for it. Hodgepodge things are made. दिखाने के दांत हो जाते हैं, खाने के दांत हैं नहीं. Then you put it in the investor presentation, AI-led company, we do lending later, we do AI first. All that is crap. So we have to do what is a business use case. We are working on it for past 3 months. This is what I will do. This is an original idea. And that is what we will prepare. And that is what we will sell.